Shri Mataji, we are very thankful to you for being here with us all and giving us this opportunity to offer this small program at your lotus feet as a token of our appreciation for all that what you have given us as this beautiful place. Jai Shri Mataji. Jai Shri Mataji, everyone. So we'll begin the second half of our program. It's always a very beautiful, amazing experience to come and meditate and watch Shri Mataji's talk in this very special place. This is a very unique ashram. When you get up in the morning, you meditate. You get to meditate in the room where Shri Mataji slept. You come out of the door, you open the window, you get to see the beautiful Shri Mataji's house. I mean, there are many ashrams in many places, but where do we get this kind of luxury? There was a talk where Shri Mataji mentions how many of the deities, they walk barefoot in India or the saints, and the land is so vibrated. And if you look at in that perspective, this is the very room where Shri Mataji has sat. And we are so honored that we can sit in the same room where Shri Adishakti herself sat. So it's really a big blessing for our collective that we have this ashram. And today we are celebrating the 20 years of the ashram, but each time we come here for meditation, I feel we share the same excitement that probably we shared 20 years back. And that's the beauty of this institution that Shri Mataji has created for us. And such a wonderful feeling every single time you come here. You know you are going to meet other yogis, you know you are going to have the most beautiful experience in meditation, and then you are going to hang out on the patio or chat here with your friends, brothers, sisters, and whoever. So with that, I would also like to share that, you know, this place is, like I said, is unique in many ways, but the ashram has always two components to it. And one of the components is definitely the ashramites, who really do a lot of stuff here. They run the ashram, but we can never forget the support that the collective provides to the ashram. So if today we are celebrating, it's not the celebration of the ashram, but our entire collective or the nearby collectives who over the period of 20 years have come and supported this ashram. So let's have a big hand for all of us. You see, it's very common to say I grew up in such and such place, but when it comes to our spiritual lives, I would say many of you would agree that we all grew up in Sahaj Yoga, in this very place, in this ashram, at least for this whole collective, because it has really shaped our spiritual life. And not just on the subtle level, but this ashram works very much on the gross level also, on a lot of aspects. If you move into ashram and you are not an early bird, you can find someone knocking on your door at 5 a.m. in the morning. They don't stop there. They tell you that you are going to lead the meditation today. And then you are half asleep. You need to figure out what mantras you are going to say. And also you need to make sure you are awake when people are doing that. If you don't like people, if you are not collective, if you like your own privacy, then trust me, you are going to have 30 people around you 24 hours, 7 days a week. You like your comfort. You come from work. You enter the ashram. You want to sip a cup of tea, go to your room, and you think you will foot soak you. I know you want to lie down. But someone comes and tells you that we are having this brother visiting from Australia. And the brother never arrives on Teterboro Airport or the Newark Airport. the brother is always coming to JFK airport. Always, always. Then you go to JFK airport. But you know what JFK airport does to you. You come back in the midnight. And then what happens at 5 o'clock? So we have many such beautiful stories. Many beautiful stories. And we'll begin the evening. We have and fortunately in this collective, lot of people who lived in this ashram are still in this collective. We somehow managed to be good with each other. We fought but never killed anybody. And we all are still together here. So one big hand for that. You know? So to take the proceedings further, let me invite our very original brothers who were here when the ashram was formed, and even sister. So please let me welcome Vasu Bhaiya, Paul Bhaiya, Uncle Mark is already here. Linda Didi, please come in front so you can share your story with us.
Jai Shri Mataji. So it's so nice to see so many dear brothers and sisters that we've shared over the years, some who have lived in this ashram, all who have been through this ashram so many times. I mean, the four of us who were here at the very beginning have so many wonderful recollections of this ashram, and we know you all do as well. And so I guess this part of the program is to share some of the stories from the very early days of this ashram. And I think as we've gotten together a few times to talk about this, and it's been so nice for us just to recall some of these stories. And we felt that we wanted to share some of the history and the recollections, but also some of the lessons and the themes and the things that we've learned from this ashram. And we heard these wonderful segments from Shri Mataji where she explained some of the importance of life in the ashram. And so many of these things we've experienced and we've learned, and we wanted to make some of these observations to you as well. I think that in order to know about the beginning of this ashram, one actually has to go back a little bit further. This ashram, we moved in on January 1st, 1998. But to put this ashram in context, one has to go back 3 years further to 1995. And some of you there are a few of you who are still around from back then, a number of you, who will remember the Yonkers ashram, which was the ashram before this. It was the first ashram that Shri Mataji bought here in New York. And she bought it because she's explained the importance of ashram living, and she was so concerned about establishing the collectivity in New York City and New Jersey and this whole area. And so it was really a great blessing in 1995 when she bought the Yonkers ashram across the river in Yonkers, New York. And she invited 5 families to come and live there. And it was a really, for those of us who lived there, it was a great privilege and a great honor. And for the whole collective, a great blessing to have this beautiful ashram on the banks of the Hudson River. Those of you who remember, we had this beautiful view off the porch looking across the river. It was just, it was an amazing place. Shri Mataji came, she visited there, the collective came there, we had pujas there. It was a beautiful place and a beautiful blessing and a beautiful gift that Shri Mataji gave us. Now, the reason I go back to the Yonkers ashram is because that ashram in the end, it didn't work out. And for various reasons, that ashram didn't succeed. And there were a number of reasons that it didn't succeed, but among them, one was, to be frank, it was some of the original people, those of us who lived there, frankly. There was some ego and some angularities and some disagreements among all those people. And the first year was very, in some ways, explosive. there was a lot of drama the first year. And a lot of difficulties among the ashramites. And then there were problems with the neighbors that came up. And in the end, after a couple of years, there were so many difficulties in that ashram that Shri Mataji decided that, she sold that ashram and basically started over again. And she went, and we'll tell the stories about how her finding this house, this beautiful house in this beautiful place, which is so perfect and we've all enjoyed so much. And in some way, and the last reason I tell you is because, so you all understand what it was like to come to this ashram when we came here. In some ways, it was like a second chance. It was like a reset for us. Because somehow Yonkers had not gone well, and so we came here full of enthusiasm and dedication and drive to make this a really beautiful, really special place, and to make Shri Mataji's, she'd done it once, it hadn't worked out, she tried again, because she was so concerned about us and so concerned that it work out. And the last thing I'll say about it is, part of the reason I share this story is we've enjoyed this ashram for 20 years. Many of us in this room have never known what it was like to live in New York without an ashram. And one thing I want to share, while we're celebrating this ashram, to recognize it isn't a foregone conclusion to have an ashram in New York, because we haven't always had one. And so while we celebrate it and cherish it, we also remember how special it is and how important it is that every person in this room really support it and respect it and be a part of how it's successful. So anyway, I just wanted to share that first story about the origins of this ashram, but now I'll turn it over to someone else.
Go back one. So this is on the staircase of the Yonkers ashram, and you can see some of those original. Actually, this was in the year just before it was sold. January '97. So I think, and we had an illustrious visitor from Europe sitting in the middle. Gregoire. All right. So then, if you could go to yes, Shri Mataji came to the ashram. You can see she came just once, and we were so happy that she came because there were so many, as Paul said, issues, and so after that we had a strong desire that we would make it right and make the vibrations nice, and really desire that she come, and she did come one more time before it was sold. And this is, as she was leaving the house, this is the front door to the house.
So this is we had a few pictures. You can go on the website at some point and look at all the pictures, the beautiful colors in the rooms that we walked into. I want to leave some suspense for you guys so you can go look at the website and enjoy all the pictures. I don't want to give all of the detail now, but that the house as it existed then needed some changes before we can actually make it livable as an ashram. We used to live in Los Angeles at the time, and Shri Mataji asked us to move to New Jersey as she's starting this ashram. So we moved here. At the time, the ashram was still Yonkers. We stayed there like 3 or 4 nights, and then 31st night we were all here celebrating New Year's Eve. So you can see there was a lot of dancing, a lot of fun. Next picture, please. And this is the one that really, really struck me. You don't see him in this picture, but Manoj was here leading this game that we called Hubba Hubba. And we would all sit in a circle and play this really, really silly, ridiculous-looking game, but we had so much fun doing it. And you see some people with the hand on the right side, some people with the hand on the left side, going Hubba Hubba, and you have to do it a certain way. You miss it, you're out, you leave the circle. So it was, I don't know how many hours over the next few months we played this game. After the first time, I just couldn't believe we were playing this. And there were people of all ages. There were like people in the 50s to 20s, everything in between. We were playing this game all together. It was just so much fun doing it. And if you just skip a couple more pictures, I think that's all we have of that tonight. But what really was significant was we were starting new in this place. Yeah. So, yeah, let's go back to the dance again. It was so joyful to just start the ashram in such a happy note. And just everybody used to get up and dance. What we used to do was every single Sunday we used to meet here as a collective in this very room and have a small puja. Everybody who wanted to can go wash in Mataji's feet. And then Manoj was always in his dholak, and we didn't have too many musicians, we would all wing it. But we had so much fun doing it. And the vibrations would just flow just as we were doing it. And almost if not every single week, almost every other week, we would be up dancing as well. So it was a really, really joyful start to the ashram.
Maybe talk just a little bit about when the ashram was purchased. When Shri Mataji came to see it, we had a realtor, and the realtor found this place. And Shri Mataji's conditions for finding a place were that it should be on public transit. Very important to her. She said, I want it to be easy for people to get to the ashram and commute into the city if they work there. So it has to be on a bus line, or it has to be easy to get into the city. So even though she said New Jersey, I think it's important to realize she was very much aware that it was because it's a maybe easier place to live, but it's right outside New York City, and that was very much part of what she wanted. She was happy that this place, when it was found, was at the end of the road, just with the forest next door. I was with the group that came here when she first came to see it with the realtor, and I remember she walked up the stairs, she walked across, she came in, and then she walked through the kitchen and out onto the back porch, that landing right outside the back door. She didn't walk around the house. We did, and the realtor showed us everything, but she just stood looking on that landing there, looking at the forest. That's it. So later, when she was talking about it, she said, well, I didn't want the realtor to think I was too interested. So it just shows how savvy she was about about it all. And another thing was important, I think, that we noticed even, and she saw too, of course, she mentioned later, coming up the stairs, just these stairs, they were, kind of falling apart, and she could see that there were, water stains, which was indicating that there could be issues. She saw that. And when we were negotiating the purchase, you know, often when you're buying a house, you make certain conditions on the seller, and you say you have to fix this long list of things sometimes before we'll buy it. So we started preparing the list, and she said, no, I want this place. This is the right place. The yogis will fix it. Took a few years, but we finally did.
I just that to me, you know, I was the lawyer, and you know, my attitude is, well, this is a deal, and we're buying this house, and by God, we're going to get the best deal we can. And it was very, it was I guess good for me, you know, to like, no, you know, this is the deal we're going to get, but it shows that everything about the ashram, there's sort of the linear sense, but there's a higher purpose. There were always many things at play in each of these situations. And I should mention one other thing related. This is actually, I'm sorry to go back to the Yonkers ashram again, but there's a really beautiful story about when she bought the Yonkers ashram. She was negotiating we were negotiating with the owner of that house, and she met him, and she said afterwards, you know, I didn't push him to the last dollar. I didn't get the best price I could, because did you see, you know, his shirt? His shirt collar was frayed. He really needed the money, and you know, it was really her compassion. She wasn't getting the best deal she could. She was thinking about a higher purpose or a higher goal, and so much of that runs through everything about this house as well. So,
well, just to say, those are pictures of the current location of Shri Mataji's house. It was an empty lot when we moved in. And it was, so we used to go there and play frisbee and hang out.
Not to mention a lot of lawn to mow.
This was our visits to the Dairy Queen down the road. We were responsible for the Divine Cold Breeze. I was the editor at the time, and the last stages of production involved gluing the photos onto the cover and then stapling them all together. So we used to do the production of, I don't know how many, about 1,000 copies of the Divine Cold Breeze that we would then send all over the world from here. Yes. Somebody looking very young, the third from the left.
Yeah, you know, can you go back to the previous picture for a second? Just notice the floor. That'll keep coming a couple times, and we'll talk about it later.
This is the meditation room. And when we moved into the house, we didn't know what really it was. It was a dining room, but we didn't use it as a dining room. We kind of used it as an office and a playroom and a walkway through to the porch out there. So, but that's it. Before it was Shri Mataji's bedroom, it was this kind of multi-purpose room.
That was Dr. Rai, who was the doctor at the health center in Vashi that was started by Shri Mataji a few years prior to that. He was visiting. He's the gentleman with the tie, and you also see young Master Pratik and Niranja. They joined us, I think, the spring of '98, and this is Pratik's mom sitting on the couch. That was the first baby. That was Lalita, a few months after she was born.
Also, you can see behind that there was no house there. No.
Lalita, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We had Alan Wary visiting from time to time and staying here when he was here on business.
Actually, can you go back to that picture, please? The previous one? No, the next one, I think. There's one with Manoj there. Maybe the next one. Yeah. You know, many of you recognize Manoj, some of you may not know him. But he was the country leader at the time, and he used to live in Bergenfield, about 7-8 miles from here. While he was not a resident of the ashram per se, he was a really, really important member of this family. You know, coming from Yonkers, you know, Paul gave a little bit of history, you know, how we, some of the things that happened there, and then we ended up moving to this ashram. Shri Mataji bought this, we all came here. There was some degree of heaviness in us. There was some degree of, I don't know how to put it, a sense of responsibility that was kind of becoming a bit of a weight at a certain level, that, oh my God, the previous ashram didn't work out. So we had that subconsciously, and we were feeling a little bit heavy because of that. And Manoj sensed it. So he was a guy, the playful guy, who would actually bring us into playing a lot of games like a Hubba Hubba and everything. And any moment he would just you know, get us started on dancing and everything. So in so many ways, he was like a big brother to all of us, really guiding us through that process. And what Shri Mataji did the first year was, almost every single week, she would have a call with Manoj and she would talk about, there are things that she would get into such level of detail, mundane things like, so what do people do there for fun? Do they play board games? Do they watch movies together? Do they do this? Do they play games? Do they do this? Do they do that? And Manoj would come and tell us. I just got on the phone, got off the phone with Shri Mataji. She called out of the blue. This is what she said. He would come over rushing, and you know, we started off playing boggle and charades and all kinds of things. And it really, he was so critical to making this transition for us, to really making this an ashram. So that's why I just wanted to point out.
It's hard for us to see it now.
The drapes are
We need
closed so
to-
we
yes.
can have less glare.
Just a little bit.
Just that,
Okay.
So I think we also see Manoj's kids here. You know, looking at the kids, there's something I just remembered. Before we moved here, we were talking to Manoj. We were still in the West Coast. We were talking to him, and he said, "Oh, I was just talking to Shri Mataji, and she was really wishing that there will be some children at this ashram. She really wants children to be born here." And we were like, "Oh, by the way." This was like November or something, the year before, 97. By the way, we are actually expecting a baby in June or July. You know, she really wanted children to be born in the ashram. So Lalita was born in July, and then Pratik and Niranjana, who moved here, Niranjana was pregnant at the time, and then they had Shashwati, who was maybe 2 or 3 years old, and then Shantavan was born here as well. So 2 months, like back to back, we had 2 kids born here. And Shri Mataji had so much attention with his children that she would actually find out all about when are they going to be born, and when they were born, she would actually give them their names. And she really put a lot of attention on children being born here. And that also, I think, these were not the first children, realized children born in this collective. Manoj had kids, and there may have been others too that had children in Sahaja Yoga, but somehow that seemed to be a time and place where she arranged certain things where this ashram, it was important to establish a Ganesha Tattva. Children was one part of it. And if you look at how many children were born in this ashram since then, honestly, I don't even know the count. I wouldn't be surprised if there are like 30 or 40 kids born since then. There's so many kids that have been born here. So it's just really a blessing to be a part of all this history.
This is what the kitchen used to look like. It was small, and it wrapped around, and you can see, it's important, you can see on the very right that that's the back door. So there was like a pathway there. And we'll get to why that's important in just a minute, but it was small, though there were ovens, like from where the picture is being taken, there were 2 ovens actually before. We had a pool.
And I think you know, it's one thing that struck us as we were talking about this is remembering how central especially back then, the ashram was to the life of the collective. And I mean, people come over here a lot now, but it was like every weekend, like so many people from New York City would come, you know, and just come for the weekend. I mean, not just for the collective meeting; they'd come for the whole weekend. And I remember, you know, I'd come home on the bus, and I'd see all these yogis just like walking along the street, along the avenue, you know, heading down to come to the ashram for the weekend. And there was really, it was really just a wonderful collective feeling that we were just sort of, those of us living in the ashram, joined by so many in the collective to enjoy. I mean, I wouldn't say we were having fun and games all weekend. We were also working pretty hard. It wasn't all swimming in the pool, but it was a very joyous, very collective time for the ashram.
You know, actually, this is something that 99
Yeah, in 99. We prepared the house for Shri Mataji in 1999, but it turned out that she did not come to visit the ashram. You can see there's still the yellow carpet there.
Actually, going back to 98, there's something else I just remembered when Paul mentioned it wasn't all fun and games. When we started in the ashram, Manoj was national leader, Andrea was the New York leader, and then we all came here, we were living, and so in that sense we didn't have any leadership responsibilities, so to speak. But then we all went to birthday puja. That was the 75th birthday in March of 1998. We were all there, we had a really wonderful time, and we came back to US. A day later, Manoj comes over and he says, oh, by the way, while I was talking to Shri Mataji in Delhi, she said that you know, she's creating VND as an organization, and she wants things to be done, and she has named 7 of us as VND officers, and he rattles off the names: Paul, Linda, Andrea, Manoj, Gagan, and Jeff Ram and me. So 7 of us. So we were like, so what does it mean? What do we do? He's like, we'll figure it out. And you know, soon after, I think maybe a few months later, Paul was the leader of New York. So all of a sudden, we have a lot of things that were happening at the national level. So we had 3 of us living in the ashram. Manoj would come here all often. Andre would come here often. So 5 of the 7 people were basically in the New York collective. So we were right in the middle of all the national projects that were going on. And we started off with the program Mark was mentioning earlier. We used to have one program, big program in New York City, and then we extended and we actually started a lot of meetings in New Jersey as well. And so on one hand, we were looking at the projects that need to happen, things that need to happen at a national level, things that need to happen at the local level, in addition to hosting some of the guests that you saw pictures of.
But this is 1999 at Town Hall. Of course, there were always programs in New York City whenever Shri Mataji came.
So, and I guess probably the important point there is that during these years, the attention was so much on spreading Sahaja Yoga in New York City. Every year, Shri Mataji would come. You know, she'd come to different countries, different years, but every year she'd come to the U.S. Every year she'd come to New York, and usually to L.A. Year after year after year. I mean, she really, and she spoke about this a lot, the importance of making sure that Sahaja Yoga was successful in New York City, and that it was spread, and that the seekers of the city really, and this whole area, had their realization, and Sahaja Yoga grew because of the outsized influence that New York has, really on the country and on the whole world. So this town hall program was just one of those programs that she had here.
Also, 99 was the year we started building out in Canajoharie. The first puja we had, international puja, building the hangar. Again, that itself is a topic for another day. We won't get into it too much, but just to say that there's a lot going on.
Yeah, and this is also 99 when the first builders came in the fall of 99. The first 4 builders came from Austria. The astral powers, we felt, came first, and they were needed to clear it out. And we didn't have a permit even to begin the building, so they were wondering what they were doing here. But they started making moldings, yes. Tarakeshwara on the left from Austria. Ground is broken. We should say that it was pretty much of a drama to get the permit for this building to happen, and that's also part of the history. Is that even we didn't mention this earlier, but we moved in January of '98, and in the summer of '98, we had an incident with the pool where a young man almost drowned, but Shri Mataji called the ashram. You may have heard that story. It's in a Navaratri Puja, and asked how the boy was, and she said that she pulled him back from the dead. So that was a miracle that happened in that pool. But at that time, the town ambulances, fire trucks all came. A little later that year, we had an incident where there was chlorine that was for cleaning the pool was mixed in the house, and again the ambulances and the fire trucks came. And the town also, our neighbors were not that happy, as we know even now, that there were so many people coming all the time. And so they were not thrilled to have yet another house built next to ours, where they thought that there might be more and more people coming. So one of the conditions, well, actually in the fall of '98, we got an eviction letter from the town. And we had to fight with them to say, no, we're living as a single family, which we were. We had our kitchen, we all took turns cooking, and we made the argument that we were not multi-family, we were one family, which was really a very beautiful Sahaj argument to be making. And then when it was time to get the permit for the new house, the town was again concerned, the neighbors were all still complaining. And then at that point, there had to be a promise that the house would not become a collective living place. So that was something that we had to agree to at the time. Actually, one thing I want to say about this, you may not know, is that this house, Shri Mataji's house, is the only house in the West that was built from the ground up, that Shri Mataji built.
Okay, let's pause there for a second. So this is year 2000. You'll hear a lot about year 2000 because so many things have happened that year. 18 years later, we were sitting in that room talking about it, shaking our heads. How did we do that? It was just Shri Mataji working it all out. We wanted to do this as kind of a before and after. So Shri Mataji came to New York, stayed there for a few days, and then we talked about the programs in summer, the pujas and all that. And then she went to spend some time with her family, Kunal and Sonalika, her grandchildren. And while she was there, she called back and she said, oh, by the way, prepare the ashram, I'll come to live in the ashram. I'll stay in the ashram. So that was the outside. And we also obviously had to clean up the pool. Don't know who that is. He's got a lot of hair. Many of us did back then. And look at the wonderful carpet. So that was before, and then we did a massive facelift of the ashram. It was Neeraj was pretty heavily involved. Srinivas was pretty heavily involved. Sri, standing in the back, he was involved in a lot of the painting. And it was just all yogi power that we just transformed the whole ashram in a matter of maybe 3 weeks. And you can see more work that's going on. These beams that you see here that are looking so beautiful now, they used to be black in color. And Shri Mataji arrived. Yeah. And that's the house she arrived. And that is the living room. This room with that carpet turned into this.
Thanks
So-
to the builders, we had new hardwood floors.
So whenever I think about this room, I think of it set up like this with the chairs right over here, and just coming into this room, and we would come in, and Shri Mataji would be sitting right there, and we would do pranam before her, and
Oh, that's the arrival.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this is we didn't want Shri Mataji to have to walk up these stairs, so we actually had to get a permit from the village in order to build the road, kind of a driveway up the side of the house, so that the car could get up, and it was actually very difficult. And we had our hero driver was Francois, who was the only one brave enough to drive the car up. It was just too. Yep. Oh, tell.
Francois is the only guy who ever managed to drive the car backwards without 10 yogis pulling out of a ditch. He was the only guy who successfully did it every time.
Because there were just 2 rows of kind of cinder blocks, really. It was
Yeah.
very difficult. So, yes, so Shri Mataji, there was a platform and she could get out of the car and came around. And so this is where, in terms of preparing the house, of course there was a lot of cooking going on. There was, preparation of every room that she was going to be in. And yet she was going to be coming through the kitchen. So I was so concerned that how are we going to have it clean enough, because everybody kept making it dirty. And so, for the, 24 hours beforehand, of course we cleaned the walls, we cleaned every little inch of that entryway, which normally you wouldn't have the Adi Shakti come in through the back door, basically. So, but we had no choice, because that was for her convenience, because of the, not the steps. So, so here she was about to enter into that back door entryway. There's Meenakshi in the doorway and Lothar on the right. And so when she walked in the door, I remember it vividly. I was standing like pretty far back, like almost into the living room. And there were a lot of people in the room. And Shri Mataji walked in, just into the kitchen, and she looked around and she immediately knew where I was. Actually, that's another thing. She always knew exactly where you were. She looked right at me and she said, "It's so clean."
Paul. That's a picture of us.
So yeah, so again, this room, Shri Mataji and Sir CP, and when she was here, staying here, so much of the time she would spend sitting here. People would come in and talk to her, whatever the business was or the issue of the day, with her and with Sir CP, and sometimes with their family members. And so that continues to be sort of the blessing of this house, that she sat here where we sat here. Her bedroom was back there where the meditation room is now.
So that's the bedroom where she was sitting down. And the next one, please. One of the things that she talked about buying the ashrams multiple times. Paul also mentioned she bought the earlier ashram in Yonkers and then this one here. So I asked Shri Mataji, why would you? And I know she lost a lot of money selling Yonkers house, and in that transition, and similar things have happened in other places too. I said, so Shri Mataji, why would you buy these houses yourself rather than having the yogis buy it? And she said, "Beta Ganesh ji ka mamla hai. It's a matter of Sri Ganesha." तुम लोग खरीदे तो गणेश जी नहीं आएंगे ना, meaning if you buy the house, Sri Ganesha won't come. So she had to buy it so that Sri Ganesha will come and be established.
Looks like it stopped. Just hit command. Oh. Reopen. Command O.
No.
So
And then a lot of down arrows.
while we're waiting, maybe we'll continue with the year
Go
2000.
there.
So Paul, you want to talk about a public program that year
He doesn't want to do.
and the VIP?
I mean, I guess we should sort of, I mean, the year 2000 looms rather large for all of us who were living there, and I know some of you out there were living here as well, as really one of the most intense years that we had in the Tri-State Collective. I mean, all the things that happened during that year. We had Shri Mataji coming, we had the one public program, we had one VIP program, we had preparing the house for her, we had everyone who was living here in the house had to move out of the house, so we rented a place in Fort Lee and we moved to different yogis' houses in the area. We had Canajoharie, we had marriages in Canajoharie, we had the performance of the magic flute, the Theater of Eternal Values from Europe. What else?
Well, which was, by the way, a cast and crew of about 60 people from Europe, mostly, who we had here. We had them,
We
you know,
hosted them.
I was in a bus that took them up to Canajoharie, and it was muddy, and we walked across the fields. It was quite the drama.
And I think that the thing to, I mean, we'll say a little bit more about that period, but it sort of underscores what it was, especially during that period when Shri Mataji was coming, you know, once a year or sometimes more than once a year, sort of the intensity of life in the ashram. There was just you know, we haven't even really talked much about building the house yet, but, you know, the house was being built. There were, you know, 30 or 40 people living in this house, including the people, the ashramites and the golden builders. We had, you know, people coming through for the public programs. We had all of these different things going on. I mean, I see those of you who were around back then nodding your heads. But there was, I mean, it was exhilarating and exciting, but it was also exhausting. Exhausting, and because as Vasu says, everyone was wearing a lot of hats back then, but that was also Shri Mataji, you know, working on all of us, you know, building the house. You know, we were building a house, but it was also, you know, we were working on ourselves and working on the collective, and it was a way that she was working on us through this intensity of effort, and, you know, it was exhausting, but it was, you know, there was sort of a focus and a determination and a dedication which was really, you know, sort of exciting and gratifying, and just a wonderful thing to be a part of.
And we had to be completely surrendered to Shri Mataji to be able to do all this. This is just humanly not possible. There's no way, left to our own devices, we would have been able to do a fraction of all this that was going on. Just to add another layer of the dramas that go on, when Shri Mataji was coming to stay at the ashram, the plan was that Shri Mataji would arrive in Newark Airport, come and stay at the ashram, and then the next day go to New York City for the public program. So that was the original plan. And then we find out Shri Mataji was stuck in traffic in LA and she missed the flight. The alternative would have been a red-eye flight going through Vegas, not even a direct flight, and she would land at JFK at 6 a.m. the morning of the program. So if she arrives at 6 a.m., we have to get her through the traffic from JFK all the way to New Jersey, so she spends the day, and then get in traffic back into Manhattan for the public program, which just didn't make any sense. So as soon as we found out about it, we called around, found a hotel in Manhattan, and between the time Shri Mataji got on the plane to the time she landed, we were able to get the room completely prepared for Shri Mataji's arrival.
And I had a flat tire on the way.
You know, you can't make it up in a movie if you wanted to, the way things were going day to day. There is no way any of us can really plan any of this out. None of us can even fathom what happened back then. Now we look back, how did we do it? We didn't. That's the thing, that when you're totally absorbed in the vibrations, surrendered totally to Shri Mataji, the things that you're able to do is way beyond what you can ever think is possible.
So we have some scenes from the ashram. Maybe go back just I don't know if other people saw it. Okay, there we go. A lot of birthdays. A young Mark. Do you want to narrate? Go ahead, keep on. Dancing.
Who's that guy with hair?
Go ahead. More dandiya dancing. Jerry and Archana. Oh, there's Miriam on the right. She's the one who made all the curtains in Shri Mataji's house. She's from the UK. She came over. And some golden builders in the picture. You can see the magic flute. Go ahead, back. I'm wearing a magic flute sweatshirt. Go ahead. Go ahead. What's that? Oh, musical chairs. Christmas at the ashram. Oh no. Okay. Keep going. The building going on at the same time. Go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, we had golden Lakshmis, from Colombia mostly, who came to do the cooking because we were cooking for 20, 30 people. And it was, breakfast everybody did their own, but lunch and dinner every day. So it was wonderful. There was a lot of Spanish being spoken here at the time. Ori? Go ahead. Singing? This is going ahead to go.
Newly married couples or remarried in Sahaja Yoga. This was marriages at Canajoharie in 2000. And so the tradition started sometime back in Sahaja Yoga was the newly married couples would say poems in praise of their new spouse. So we had a bunch of people giving their beautiful poems. So this is Jesus, here's Mangala. A very typical attitude of Lotar's face with the next stage of the project.
There's always a birthday party at the ashram, right?
Go ahead. Margarita and Beerson. Oops, we saw this before. Oh no.
I think we're going
Oh, wait.
backward.
Introducing Arwin Bira. Go ahead. Lothar holding Arwin Bira. And me. Go ahead. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, jeez. Okay, keep more builders and ashramites. Go ahead. This. We're all wearing red one day. Archana's shower.
Yeah. So this is something I know many of you have seen occasions like this. This is a baby shower for a lady who's about to have a baby, and we've seen many of these joyful occasions. The reason I want to take a minute talking about this is part of the story of the ashram. When we first started in the ashram, there wasn't a lot of respect for housewife or a mother in the ashram. It wasn't like women were not respected, it's just the housewives were not respected, or mothers. So it was really hard in the beginning years, and it just went on for a while. In fact, the year 2000 at Yadishakti Puja, Shri Mataji talked specifically about it, and we were surprised that she even brought it up in a puja talk. We thought if she ever talked about it, it'll probably be in a small private gathering, but she just talked about it because things needed to work out in a larger scale. It wasn't just specific in the house, in the collective, it was larger scale. There are things that needed to be worked out. So she talked about it, and then that was 2nd of July, and 4th of July she was back in the ashram, and she said, "Beta, I had to talk about it. I hope it changes now. I hope Sri Devi is happy now." And she, it was not easy for a housewife back then, for a mother, because people had certain expectation that you had to do the work, and why aren't you doing this? Again, I'm not saying in any sense of complaining, it's just that lack of awareness was there. And it has definitely shifted, and as you go year after year, things have become much more joyful. And mainly what you have to see is, over the years, people change, people evolve, people learn and grow. So that is one of the areas that I see that there's a significant growth in the collective, that anytime someone sees that, hey, someone is about to have a baby, all of a sudden becomes a joyful occasion for the entire collective to get involved in. And I've been to one event where not only the ladies but also the guys were here for one of the showers. So it is really, really one of the things that has changed significantly over time. So those are the kind of things that if you guys look back, what are the things that have changed in the ashram from the time I first saw the ashram to now, you'll see there are so many things that have transitioned. It's all a part of our growth, which is really the best thing about having an ashram to begin with. It's about our growth.
Shantanu.
Every child had many uncles who were always willing to read a story. So one of the final stages of Shri Mataji's land was building the front, and this is done by Russ and his dog.
Next one. River. Yeah. Oh, then do we? Yeah. So now we. Yeah. Do you want to say anything else? Go ahead.
So that's all that that was all that we had wanted to share with you, to show you some photographs and tell you some stories and make some observations. I guess I would just leave with something that I began with, is that all of us in this room, we've had such wonderful opportunities to live in the ashram and visit here and to share in the joy of the collective. But again, the ashram persists and remains strong because of each of us, because we support it, because we come and we share our vibrations and we help the ashramites. I think one thing to remember is that, and I'd say, living in the ashram, it's a labor of love, but it is a labor. I mean, there's a lot of, everyone who's lived in the ashram knows it's a lot of work. And I think one of the things that those of us who are not living in the ashram, we can support the ashram if we're dedicated to it and we have so much benefit from it. Always see how we can support the ashram by coming, by helping, by recognize that Niraj gave some wonderful observations in the very beginning about what it's like to live in the ashram, and it's really it's funny, but it's true. It really, that is a little bit what it's like to live in the ashram, and everything that we outside can do to support helps to make it stronger, helps to make it a more beautiful, more loving family. So just as it's been here for 20 years, it'll be here for another 20 years and another 200 years. So, Jai Shri Mataji.
So, thank you very much. That was really wonderful, and we can really remember all the beautiful moments. So once again, thanks a lot.